Tonight on NewsCenter. After Paris, U.S. warplanes attack oil trucks in Syria after France bombs ISIS targets and carries out nearly 170 raids on home soil. As France goes to war with terrorism, Korea reacts by paying tribute to the victims in Paris. World leaders, including President Park Geun-hye, show unity and determination to step up efforts to eliminate the Islamic State group at the Group of 20 summit in Antalya, Turkey. And United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon is due to visit North Korea this week and possibly meet its leader Kim Jong-un. That's according to South Korean news reports on this Monday, November 16, 2015. Welcome our viewers in Korea and all around the world. I'm Moon Gun-young. We begin this Monday night with Friday's deadly terror attack in Paris. France has kicked off a bold retaliation by bombing ISIS in its Syrian stronghold of Raqqa. Arirang News EG1 has more on what's unfolded since last Friday's tragedy.
Friday, November 13, will now be remembered as a tragic day for Paris. Attacks carried out there by members of the Islamic State militant group has left at least 129 dead and more than 300 injured. Violence was carried out at 6 different sites across the city, restaurants, and a soccer stadium. The greatest number of victims died inside the Bataclan Theater, where 89 people were shot during a rock concert. IS claimed responsibility for the attacks, stating that it was in response to insults and strikes against Muslims. The extremist group also said that Friday's terrorism was just the start of a storm and a warning for those who wish to draw lessons. French President François Hollande also confirmed that IS is to blame for the attack and described it as an act of war. In the first apparent sign of retaliation, France carried out airstrikes on the IS stronghold of Raqqa in northern Syria. French fighter jets reportedly dropped at least 20 bombs in the area, hitting various IS targets including a command and control center, recruitment center, munitions depot, and a training camp. 이지원, Arirang News.
French police have arrested around 24 people as they investigate the attacks. Bruce Harrison joins me live in the studio. Now, Bruce, the French government says these are just the beginning.
Hello, Konyang. Yes, what we know so far, police have a growing list of people that they're looking for in France and outside the country. They carried out 168 raids in Paris overnight, seizing drugs and weapons. They also placed 104 people under house arrest.
And we heard not too long ago that in Brussels, police has surrounded the houses of some possible suspects.
That's correct. Apparently, though, they didn't find who they were looking for. They're still combing this Brussels suburb of Molenbeek in search of a Belgian man named Salah Abdeslam. French National Police have asked for anyone to come forward with information about him. He was apparently questioned by police near France's border with Belgium shortly after the attacks, but not detained. There were also briefly reports of his capture in Molenbeek, but Belgian police, public broadcaster RTBF, said that's not true. A different person's being detained. The alleged mastermind of the attacks is Belgian man Abdelhamid Aboub. According to a source close to the French investigation, he's currently in Syria. The source said he's investigators' best lead as the person behind the killings. He's apparently from Molenbeek, the same Brussels suburb where authorities have been searching for Salah Abdeslam.
Well, this obviously has put a lot of cities on full alert as well.
That's correct. Cities around the world have beefed up security a bit, and the attacks alone were enough to do that. But now, not long ago, just this evening rather, a video emerged warning countries taking part in Syria airstrikes that they'll suffer the same fate as France. The video specifically threatened Washington. In the U.S., police in major cities have heightened security, though officials said it was precautionary and not in response to the specific threats. Both the United States and France have increased airstrikes on Islamic State-held territory in Syria since the Paris attacks.
Well, back in Paris, Parisians are returning to work. Schools have reopened. How are they adjusting to the everyday normal life?
Many Parisians have told the media so far it's not going well. It's going to be very difficult to get back on track, back to life as normal. There are more police officers on the streets in Paris, with many still feeling worried and unsafe. France's Prime Minister Manuel Valls had encouraging words for the French public and said intelligence services thwarted 5 terrorist attacks since this summer. But he also said France needs to prepare itself for more attacks.
Terrorism can strike, has struck, though we have avoided several attacks, and could strike again now in the coming days, in the coming weeks. I am not saying that to scare people, but just so everyone understands.
The Louvre, Eiffel Tower, and other museums and landmarks have reopened in Paris as the city tries to move on.
Well, obviously a story in development, and you will be following that for us.
That's correct, Kanyang. As we speak, there are raids taking place in France and in neighboring Belgium as they continue to look for suspects.
All right, thank you, Bruce, for that.
Thanks.
Meanwhile, nowhere is safe. That's the conclusion the Korean government has come to following the terror attacks in Paris. Seoul has vowed to rev up efforts to better protect its nationals in Korea and abroad. Won Ji-hyun has the details.
No longer a safe haven. That's how serious the Korean government raised the latest terror attacks that killed at least 120 people in Paris. Following up on the first emergency meeting held on Saturday, Seoul vowed to upgrade its protection of its nationals in a second meeting on Monday. Top officials from all relevant agencies, from the police to the presidential office, attended the session chaired by the foreign ministry. The government said terrorists exhibited new and different methods and scale in their attacks, prepared articulately over a considerable period of time.
We take this situation differently from the previous terror attacks that took place in Europe, as the latest one targeted innocent civilians in a massive scale.
Seoul's intel agency and the military will also beef up cooperation to guarantee national security and safety.
The Korean military has reinforced its readiness in case of any possible terror attack. We have inspected safety and security protocols here in the nation's key military facilities and camps deployed overseas.
The Korean embassy in France will keep on contacting with Korean residents and visitors in France in order to check on their well-being. And the same action will be taken to those in other major European countries, including the UK, Germany, and Turkey. No Korean was killed or hurt in Friday's terror attacks, but the government immediately issued a travel warning for Paris and cities nearby. Seoul's foreign ministry will hold a third follow-up meeting later this week. Won Ji-hyun, Arirang News.
The entire world has been grieving with France over Friday's deadly attacks. From Rome to Berlin, New York to Hong Kong, people gathered in vigils to honor the victims and show their support for Paris. And the city of Seoul is no exception. Arirang News' Shin Se-min joins us from the French embassy in central Seoul. Se-min, there's been a continuous stream of people visiting the French mission to pay their respects and show support.
Yes, Kanyang, it has been another heart-wrenching but a calm, rainy day here in Seoul as a number of ambassadors, dignitaries, along with French expats and Koreans have visited the French embassy here located in Seodaemungu district, all to express their solidarity with the people of Paris, devastated and scarred by what happened on Friday.
Flowers are being laid, candles lit, and notes that read, Jesus Paris, are being left here. One by one, French residents, expats, and other local Koreans have come out to the French embassy in Seoul, turning it into one of many tribute sites for the victims in Friday's attacks. It may have happened in Paris, but the world was watching, and now the international community is mourning the massive loss.
As someone with many French friends, the event did not feel distant at all. My feelings just led me to visit a part of France in Korea.
They used to go in this part of to have fun and stuff. That's very scary.
French embassies throughout the world, including the one in Seoul, observed a moment of silence in remembrance of those lost in Friday's attacks. Korea's Prime Minister Park Geun-hye and the first Vice Foreign Minister Im Seong-nam also paid tribute to the victims. The embassy in Seoul also invited French nationals to leave messages of condolence in a book that will be sent back to Paris. And the attacks have pressured local authorities in Seoul to heighten security in neighborhoods where French nationals reside. But despite the sadness and mourning, the Paris attacks have brought many together in hopes of finding peace.
I guess this ideology don't believe in borders, don't believe in, limitations. So what is up to us to we prepare ourselves to avoid this kind of devil acts on our land.
Kind of angry, but then second times we are very happy to see all our people who support us from all the countries. I'm very touched to see that we are not alone.
Seoul's iconic landmark, the N Tower on Mount Namsan, which can be seen from all over the city, is also lit in the colors of the French flag, a sign of support for France's terror victims. It also highlights that the tragedy is an attack on the international community as a whole. Kanyang?
Which is exactly why we've been seeing people all around the world and here in Seoul holding signs that read, Nous sommes Paris, Je suis Paris, and Seoul stands by Paris. Thank you, Semin. Our Shin Semin reporting on Seoul Lights, praying for Paris.
일상생활에서 벌어질 수 있다는 게 되게 크게 와닿거든요. 비극이라고 생각을 하거든요.
너무 가슴 아픈 그런 사건에 대해서 겪으신 분들 힘내셨으면 좋겠고.
I think we have to pray for Paris because we have to find a solution. So the question is really, what is the good solution to pray for Paris and to help us to find the real solution?
I'm really sad, and I want to share this sadness with the people, the family of the victims.
프랑스로 갈 여행 계획이 있었는데 그것도 무산되고 거기에 갈 여행 경비를 조의금으로 전달하고 싶어서 지금 조의금을 지금 보관하고 있어요.
많은 사람들이 죽어서 아주 미안하고 걱정되고요. 우리 학교에서도 수업마다 1분씩은 침묵 시간을 해서 생각하기를 했어요. 모든 학생들이.
SNS 상으로도 위로의 말들이 많이 올라오고 있던데 그런 형식적인 말뿐 아니라 그런 게 뭔가 행동이나 다른 것까지도 이어지길 바라고 단시간에 이루어진 관심이 아니라 그 사건이 해결되기까지 끝까지 관심 가져주셨으면 좋겠는데 바랍니다.
네, 너무나 가슴이 아프고 절대로 이런 일이 일어나서는 안 된다고 생각합니다. 네, 프랑스 파리 시민들이 이 역경을 빨리 잘 딛고 일어나서 다시 평화가 다시 이 땅에 오기를 바랍니다.
Turning to Turkey, where President Park Geun-hye and leaders from the world's 20 most powerful economies are holding their annual summit. This year's meeting is being held against the backdrop of the bloodiest attack on France since World War II. Our Hwang Sang-hee is traveling with the president, and she joins us from Antalya. Sang-hee, anti-terror efforts were front and center of discussions at this year's G20 summit.
Kanyang, the G20 summit usually focuses on economic issues as it brings together leaders from 20 most powerful economies. But this year, the Paris attacks made the event a crucial opportunity for world leaders to get together and discuss measures to counter terrorism.
World leaders observed a minute's silence to remember the victims of recent terror attacks at the start of a two-day G20 summit in Turkey's resort city of Antalya. This year's summit has been overshadowed by the deadly attacks on Paris. At a working dinner on Sunday, President Park denounced the bloodshed.
The president stressed that terrorism continues to evolve. Its new forms threaten the lives and basic values of people around the world. She said terrorism has become a cancer within the international community that hinders world peace and security.
At the working dinner, world leaders focused entirely on terrorism and the refugee crisis, calling them the most urgent global challenges. President Park said the UN Security Council resolution on blocking the flow of foreign fighters to Iraq and Syria must be put into force. She added South Korea will contribute by bolstering legal measures to sever the flow of cash to terror groups. The South Korean leader said the terror attacks on Paris calls for the attention of not only the G20 leaders, but also the collective intelligence and courage of the world.
And wrapping up the two-day summit, the leaders will adopt a joint statement reiterating their commitment to counter terrorism. President Park will then depart for Manila, Philippines to attend the APEC summit. Kanyang?
Thank you, Sung-hee. Our presidential office correspondent Hwang Sung-hee reporting from Antalya, Turkey. Now, while the Paris attacks have turned the G20 summit's focus on anti-terrorism efforts, conventional economic issues have not been totally put aside. To speak on this and issues President Park discussed or presented at Monday's meeting, we're joined live in the studio by our very own Kwon So-ah. Now, So-ah, the state of the global economy is usually what dominates the G20 summit, and this time around, it is being discussed in Turkey as well. The agenda for this meeting is collective action for inclusive and robust growth.
That's right, Kanyang. And under the Turkish G20 presidency this year, officials are looking at three main categories, and those are called the so-called 3 I's, which stand for inclusiveness, investment, and implementation. Now, leaders are talking about solutions to tackle slow global economic recovery, financial problems, increasing income inequality, gender inequality, and youth unemployment. Now, G20 members also got the chance to contribute to the summit, and that includes South Korea's President Park Geun-hye.
President Park suggested, offered, and explained 3 main economic issues at one of the sessions. She revealed her plan to support joint investment projects in Northeast Asia, spoke about her initiative to create a Northeast Asian Development Bank, and presented a performance update on South Korea's reform plan for 4 major sectors. The investment project in Northeast Asia would be worth $63 billion, an amount based on the yearly demand for infrastructure development in the region, including North Korea. But the senior presidential secretary for economic affairs told reporters that the plan could only go ahead if Pyongyang gives up its nuclear program. The Northeast Asian Development Bank would be specializing on the 3 northeastern provinces of China, Russia's Far East, as well as North Korea, with President Park hoping for mutual cooperation with a long-existing Asian Development Bank and recently established China-led Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank.
The proposal of the Northeast Asian Development Bank had been made to individual countries at summits with the U.S., China, or Japan, but it's the first proposal at a multilateral event in a bid to establish a consensus with the G20 members.
In terms of the government's reform plan of the labor, public, education, and finance sector, President Park said there were tangible results following the 3-year economic plan she unveiled at last year's summit.
If my memory serves me correct, that very 3-year plan had been praised at the G20 summit in Brisbane.
Indeed, and that is because it received the highest marks from the IMF and OECD on an analysis of all G20 members' growth strategies. So I talked to an economist on the evaluation of Korea's policies presented this year.
South Korea is actually the only country in the world that advanced from being an underdeveloped country to a high-income country. But currently, the Korean economy is facing difficulties in progressing to a developed country. That's why the Korean economy needs some transformation, and why the 4-sector restructuring plan is in place. It's not only an important task for Korea, but one that is being eyed with big interest from the international community.
Well, what the global community is eyeing with even bigger interest is probably President Park Geun-hye's investment plan, annual investment plan into this Northeast Asian region, which of course some experts say is not very feasible or practical at this point.
Of course, and that's because denuclearization of Pyongyang is not really expected in the near future by many experts. But they do see a significance in the suggestion itself. So let's take a listen why.
As North Korea is also part of Northeast Asia, President Park's offer can be understood as a will to secure safety in the region and to support North Korea in a more strategic way than before. I think it's more about what will be supported, not about the amount of money. Also, the proposal of the new bank is important, as it needs to be differentiated from the ADB or AIIB, which North Korea is not part of.
Now, apart from her remarks, President Park also held talks with major leaders to find ways to strengthen economic resilience in the world economy. But Geun-hye, many don't expect any huge outcomes on the economic front this year, but maybe next year when the G20 summit will be held in China.
Well, of course, these world leaders have bigger and more urgent, pressing issues to deal with at the moment. So we will wait and see what the outcome is there. Thank you so much for that report.
My pleasure.
Now, speaking of North Korea, will there be a diplomatic breakthrough in Pyongyang? A South Korean news agency reports, citing sources at the United Nations, UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon will visit Pyongyang this week and likely meet the regime's leader, Kim Jong-un. Our Song Ji-sun looks into what we can expect from the trip if indeed that trip is realized this time around.
Citing a senior UN official in New York, Seoul-based Yonhap News Agency reported that UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon will visit Pyongyang this week and hold talks with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. With a slew of issues expected to be on the table, including human rights and the regime's nuclear ambitions, the source says Ban won't return empty-handed. With diplomatic channels closing in on Pyongyang, the international community has been strengthening sanctions, further isolating the communist regime. Pyongyang is likely to deliver any message it has through talks with the UN chief. With just a year to go until his term ends, Ban has long tried to visit Pyongyang to bring the communist regime back to the negotiating table. He had earlier planned to visit the North Korean border city of Kaesong in May, but Pyongyang withdrew their approval at the last minute without explanation. The United Nations said it has no further comment at this time, with the South Korean government saying they have no knowledge of the trip. If Ban does make the trip, he will become just the third UN Secretary General to visit North Korea, and the first in 22 years. The UN chief will likely transit via a third country, as Seoul's Unification Ministry said it did not receive a declaration form from Ban to enter North Korea. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
The annual Group of 20 summit usually focuses on economic issues. Then the Paris attacks made the event a crucial opportunity for world leaders to discuss plans to defeat terrorism and continue to accommodate the refugees flooding out of Syria. Now, the G20 Antalya summit has become one of the most important G20 summits since the April 2009 meeting that addressed the global financial crisis. Joining me live in the studio is Dr. Kim Hyun-wook, professor at Korea National Diplomatic Academy. Dr. Kim, good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Now, the terrorist attacks in Paris, it was beyond words could describe. It's horrible, but it may be bringing together longtime adversaries. The group of 20 leaders, world leaders in Antalya vowed collective action to battle or defeat terrorism. Even U.S. President Barack Obama and Russian President Vladimir Putin saw eye to eye on that need. How will the G20 nations address this issue this time around?
Well, I think they will probably come up with some agreements, but I think that is limited to a very basic agreement, like, blocking some terrorist global transfers, how to share information by, member countries, something like that. I mean, they would not be able to come up with more strategic details because the reason is that a lot of countries, including United Nations, Russia, France, they have all different interests about how to deal with the ISIL. For example, United States, President Obama has been withdrawing its U.S. military forces from Iraq and Afghanistan and does not want to get involved in some other areas by sending out U.S. troops again. But at the same time, France has been very much active in sending their troops, especially in some areas like Syria and some other parts of Africa. So I think, and after the Paris attack by terrorists, I think France's response to deal with ISIL, I think, will be more active than now. So I think there should be some, have a difficulty, I think, U.S. and France in dealing with, ISIL in the future. That kinds of differences, how to deal with ISIL, it's not easy to come up with a more detailed, agreement, I think.
Right. Well, the latest development has been that there has been U.S. airstrikes on oil trucks in Syria. So I guess not boots on the ground, but airstrikes there, right?
Mm-hmm. I think U.S. still is very reluctant to send out its ground troops. And as you have mentioned, the U.S. position with Russian leader Putin is different in this area too. I mean, Putin has been supportive of the regime in Syria, but United States President Obama has been supporting the rebel groups, which is pretty much gearing towards a democratization of Syria. Also responding to the ISIL in this area. So I think, one of the important features of the current move is that this kind of terrorist moves and terrorist attack has been more and more globalized. It has happened in Turkey and also above Sinai Peninsula and also in Paris. So I think it's not the problem around the Syria, but also a lot of member states in global arena should respond to this attack.
Right, and responding to that attack along with other world leaders was President Park Geun-hye at the G20 summit. Mm-hmm. Now, what will be the role of South Korea in this collective action against terrorism?
Well, it's not easy because, only basic, posture we can show to the, other countries, members in G20. Of course, it has been and it is now becoming more and more globalized. So Korea is not a safe zone anymore. So I think global cooperation with other member states should be more active from the Korean side. But I think, as I have mentioned, more specific details and strategies have to come out, and then we have to decide how to have the same pace with, global, postures and attitudes towards this attack.
Dr. Kim, before I let you go, I want to ask you about the UN chief's possible visit to Pyongyang. Now, I remember 6 months ago, at the last minute, North Korea canceled the invitation given out to UN Chief Pan Ki-moon. Why do you think North Korea wants him there now?
I think the situation has changed. I mean, 6 months ago, North Korea has been pretty much isolated diplomatically. It wanted to strengthen its relationship with China, but Chinese leader Xi Jinping's posture towards North Korea at the time was very hawkish. And also because of a lot of provocative behaviors in order to strengthen and consolidate its power domestically, North Korean leader lost a lot of friends globally. So it was pretty much in isolation. But now, North Korea and China, two countries' relationship is about to be reverted back to the, previous stage. Mm-hmm. I mean, a lot of media mentioned that seems like to be visiting Beijing sometime next year, like April or May. Mm-hmm. And also after, some while now, Kim Jong-un's domestic power has been pretty much consolidated. So I think he's now ready to welcome, Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. And by, welcoming him, maybe there will be some deals made by Ban Ki-moon and Kim Jong-il. One of the purposes that he wants is to have more flexibility in UN Security Council resolution by which North Korea can get a lot of economic benefits. So that kind of things is something he wants to get from him.
Right, with Kim Jong-un that is. And when this trip actualizes and when we see UN Chief Pan Ki-moon visit Pyongyang, we'd like to have you back in the studio for your insights into this issue.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. In other news, in roughly 2 months' time, leaders from all walks of life will gather in the Swiss town of Davos to discuss the world's most pressing issues. Now, over the years, Korea has transformed into an advanced economy, so has the country's status in the international arena, as well as at the World Economic Forum. Not only is Korea taking part in identifying the global challenges facing the world today, but, in fact, is at the forefront of a worldwide revolution. In this two-part series, we'll tell you how, but first, in part one, we give you an understanding of what really goes on at the World Economic Forum. Think World Economic Forum, and the first thing that comes to mind is most likely the snow-capped mountains in the ski resort town of Davos. That image followed by a group of super-rich sipping champagne, networking. While that may be partly true, the WEF is more than just complimentary drinks in the Alps. Not only is it more than that, it's more than Davos as well. Lee Howell is head of global programming at the World Economic Forum. He's the main architect of the WEF's summits like this one in Abu Dhabi, as well as the annual meeting in Davos every January. What he does, together with the rest of the WEF staff, is provide a unique space for thought leaders from academia, business, civil society, international organization, and government to foster creative and collaborative thinking, and more importantly, the creation of a roadmap for action to be delivered in Davos. Now, I see that this is a very unique environment for a meeting to take place. It's not the traditional kind of a meeting. What are you trying to, establish or accomplish through this kind of a setting?
Well, I think first it's a recognition that complex issues, I think, require a fresh approach. And part of that approach is, one, to recognize that you need a variety of different stakeholders to really produce the diversity of thinking that's needed to come up with really creative or innovative ideas. So you want to create an informal environment that brings in elements of technology, some technology to help you understand an issue faster so you can go from the diagnostic to the prescriptive. Right. And also an environment that says, this is energizing, I want to do something creative.
Energizing and interactive because, he says, in this fast-moving times in a highly interconnected world, pressing global problems arise quickly and without warning. Yet to address them requires levels of global cooperation that are difficult to attain precisely because of the complexity of the world. The World Economic Forum has been recognized as an international organization for public and private cooperation. Does that change anything? What does that mean for the World Economic Forum?
The World Economic Forum, again, if in our new status as this international institution or international organization that focuses on public-private collaboration, I think the most significant consideration is, how do you become a platform that is to enable and catalyze sort of the creativity and innovation of others? Increasingly, global issues require less of a vertical penetration. Most global issues are horizontal, and they require basically breaking silos. And the only way you can break silos is to sort of say, hey, here's a platform for all you actors to basically run your apps, so to speak, on this platform. And that's really something with our new status we're aspiring to become, a place, the platform for other really great innovation and entrepreneurship to emerge as their apps among a community of people who trust the platform.
Breaking silos and coming up with innovative ideas are critical now than ever as the fourth industrial revolution is already underway. Mastering the fourth industrial revolution will be the main focus in Davos come January, where over 2,500 leaders will try to achieve a globally shared understanding of how technology is transforming the economic, social, ecological, and cultural aspects of our lives.
Is the collaboration we had with the KAIST, the Korean Advanced Institute for Science and Technology. The president, as you know, is here. They've been a great partner of ours. We've done a number of sessions we call Ideas Labs. They've been with us because fundamentally every global challenge has a science and technology dimension, and they've been great collaborators of ours. There's a lot of room for as scientists as well as successful politicians and industrialists. We're doing exciting things with them in Davos. He could tell you some about that.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Well, we hope to see you in Davos.
Yes,
then.
that'd be great.
Thank you so much for this interview.
No, thank you. Thank you so much.
Here in Seoul, we kicked off the week with another rainy day. Let's check in with our Ji-hyun at the Weather Center to see if we'll get to see some sun tomorrow.
Hello, Geun-hye. As you've just said, we started out the third week of November with some precipitation, which seems like it's going to continue till tomorrow morning.
Right, Ji-hyun, third week of November, but despite the rain we had over the past weekend, temperatures were actually very bearable. Is the rain today going to affect the thermometer by any chance?
No, not really. In fact, it's going to be milder tomorrow with a low of 12 and a high of 17 here in Seoul. But frequent rain is in the forecast for this week, and we'll notice temperatures dropping to their average levels by this week. And tomorrow you'll wake up to wet roads under cloudy skies, but as the day progresses, conditions will become sunnier for the upper parts but remain cloudy for the southern provinces. On that note, here are the readings for tomorrow. While daily high here in Seoul will hike up to 17, Daegu and Gwangju will hike up to 16 and 18, and Busan tops out at 19. And as for the other regions, Daejeon and Jeju Island will see a high of 17 and 19. Now that's Korea for you, and here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
That is our broadcast on this Monday night. I'm Moon Geun-hye. To our viewers in Paris and to all those affected by Friday's attack, we pray for you, and our thoughts are with those sacrificed in this tragedy. Thank you all for watching. We hope to see you right back here, same time tomorrow on NewsCenter.